The capacity to learn is a gift. The ability to learn is a skill. The willingness to learn is a choice. That was a quote by author Brian Herbert. To help students learn parkour, we need to make parkour as familiar as possible. Consider students' strengths and weaknesses, and also learn what is the best environment for the students to learn in. The Universal Design for Learning is a teaching method developed by an organization called CAST that specializes in learning optimization. The purpose of UDL is to provide the most optimal instruction, resources, and environments for all students to learn in. UDL says that as coaches, we should provide multiple means for engagement, representation, and action or expression. I'm going to apply each of these sections to parkour. Engagement taps into what CAST calls the why of learning. What are the optimal ways to heighten and use student motivation? What are the optimal ways to recruit and maintain interest? As coaches, we should create our lessons considering the interest, motivations, and concerns of all of our students. This is one way we can make parkour more relevant and inviting to students. On the first day of meeting a student, find out what things interest them, parkour related or not. Some students just want to learn flips or get faster at climbing, and that's perfectly fine. Some students may want to use parkour to build social skills, and that's fine as well. We should find ways to incorporate the goals and interests of our students into lessons. Imagine this. You have a student that's really into breakdancing and is now learning parkour. You could use different breakdancing moves to work on different parkour skills. We should also try as much as possible to make the learning environment distraction and risk-free. As the quote at the beginning said, the willingness to learn is a choice. That choice will be an easy one for the kids to make if we make parkour something they want to learn. Representation is the what of learning. Some of us are visual learners, some of us are auditory learners, some of us like hand-on activities. A lot of us are a mixture of many different styles. For visual learners, consider demonstrating skills or physically showing tips rather than talking through the details. Also consider using hand gestures to signify common techniques and skills. Visual learners also learn really well from watching themselves through a video recording. For auditory learners, use sound cues for correct or incorrect behavior. You can count steps or give different skills corresponding beats. If I have a student learning a backflip and they're missing their tuck, I may tell them to listen for that loud tuck slapping sound when you get a nice tight tuck. Kinesthetic learners learn best through hands-on activities, so they may learn skills best through games, homework, or you can use them as a demonstration when explaining skills. Another important part of representation is there has to be a shared language when talking about skills. It's often hard for kids to learn parkour terms. When I teach wall splats, I often use words like Spider-Man, drop kick, or double high five, since these are words kids are more likely to understand. Technical names are good for highly motivated parkour students or students that want to compete, but for first-time parkour athletes, we should not be concerned with making sure they know the name for each and every move. One fun way of teaching QM or vault movements is to play this game, where the coach tells everyone to pretend like they're chilling on the beach, but to watch out for the PE teacher coming. When the PE teacher comes around, the students have to quickly start doing push-ups. You can use different call-outs such as crab on the beach, or superhero landing to help students work on other motions. One last note about representation. It's also important to know if your students are big picture thinkers or are detail oriented. Big picture athletes will benefit most from getting the chance to practice the whole skill first and then working on smaller drills to refine technique. Detail oriented students will need a step-by-step guide on how to do each part before they can perform the final skill. Lastly, we look at action or expression. This is the how of learning. Brainstorm all of the helpful resources you can give students to help them practice skills and learn more about parkour. We also should give students various options to show that they've learned different skills, such as through games, a showcase, or an obstacle course. Lastly, use tools and cues to teach students. I use verbal cues such as feet together for precision jumps or 1-2 to mean strides. But I also use hand gestures to mean the same thing as well. As mentioned before, video recordings are great for visual cues. Counting beats or making sounds can also be a good way to signal different movements. You can also use different touch cues, such as telling a student to squeeze a block between their feet to practice keeping their feet together during jumps, or only wearing one shoe during a movement to signify the correct foot to land on. As coaches, we should always strive to provide the most optimal environments, resources, and instructions for students to learn in.